It's a game changer. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. I may stop at some period, but as long as folks act the food, got to talk about it. And one of the things you want to do as a business owner is to create barriers of entry. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more, they should be given more flexible work hours. We have to think like the successful companies. Good morning and welcome to the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host, and we are here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. bringing you the good marketing gospel. We're not saving souls, we're saving businesses, saving jobs, saving our community. Now, if I happen to save a soul along the way, don't hold that against me. We'll just call that icing on the cake, because the mission here is to build strong businesses in our community so we can put our people to work. That's right. Tired of us going out here with our hands out at other communities, asking them to hire our children. Our children? Like we can't do that ourselves? Come on, folks. We can do better. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to build this economic foundation so that we can hire our children and put our people to work. That's the mission of the show. Now, every now and then, we might have to save a soul. That's the name Marketing Pulpit, which I got from my pop, who was a Baptist minister. But we are here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. bringing you the good marketing gospel. Now, you can go to marketingpulpit.com and you can find the show there. You can listen live right on the homepage. You can also find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Instagram. You can also get the podcast, which is a new feature we've just added. So please subscribe to our podcast. Go to marketingpulpit.com and you'll see the podcast up in the podcast link up in the navigation bar. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on Google. We're on iHeartRadio. So you can also catch the Marketing Pulpit podcast. Because sometimes you're driving along in the car, you can't be watching a video. As much as I'd like you to see the show, it gets a little harder sometimes when you're driving. Sometimes you're in the shower, you're on the treadmill, you just want to listen to the show. Just turn it on and go through one episode after the other. So you can get that on Spotify. Just go to Spotify. You can go to marketingpulpit.com. You'll see all of the links for the podcast on the various platforms. Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and a few others. Also, we podcast on Facebook. And also go to YouTube and you can catch all the shows. And if you get lost, go to marketingpulpit.com. I'm Robert Gatewood. I am a business developer by trade. I help companies get into the entrepreneur world. Many companies have contacted us over the years, people who are thinking about getting into business, contemplating. Many people, due to the pandemic, they decided to leave their occupations and decided to, jump into this, stick their toe in this entrepreneurial world. It's not for the weak of heart. It's not as easy as it sounds. I think I've done a whole show on why you might think twice. But once you make that commitment, you want to surround yourself with people who know what they're doing. Voila. That's me. I've been doing this for a minute. I have my own company, Gatewood Marketing and Web. You can find that company at gatewoodmarketing.com. I'm also a business developer. I consult with the Small Business Administration for companies in the 8A program. I've written a couple of books, one called Played in Full and one called Smarter Than the Boss. I've also teach this at the Prince George's College here in the DC area. I teach marketing, networking, social media. And so been at this for a minute. I mean, I got, young folks call it, got a few receipts, but that's not to brag. That's just to let you know that if you need this help, it's available. And if you don't want to spend any money, heck, just tune in here every Friday. Now, we have many people who've decided to hire my company and myself. People like Joe Madison and Neely Fuller and Taxes and All and BLE and a few other, MRS Tax, Bradley Thomas Law, Eternity Plumbing, the list just goes on and on and on. And we're not trying to be a marketing company for everybody because we're not a volume kind of company. We're like a boutique. Folks that hire me, man, they're like family. I talked to Bradley, his family, his daughter, his son, his wife. Same thing with Thorm and Jerry. I know Belinda, Yolanda, and BLE. I know Langston and Eddie and Neely Fuller and Mark and the whole. So we're not a boutique kind of shop. And I think that's one of our unique selling positions is that we don't try to be everything to everybody. But once we decide that you've chosen us to work with you and vice versa, then you're going to get the results. Folks, we got a lot to talk about today. We are still into Women's History Month, and their theme this month is women providing healing and promoting hope. Man, what's not to like about that? So let's, women, there are women in your life or people that you know who are doing things that are making a difference. Let's support them, celebrate them, let them know. We appreciate what you're doing. So I'm just going to say with a blanket to all the women out there that are doing things, that are making things happen. We appreciate you and thank you for the healing and hope that you have provided through the ages and continue to provide. Let's see what else is going on. We're going to talk about, later in the show, we're going to talk about location. Now, location, we've heard over the years, location. That's like the hallmark of business success. But is it still as pivotal as it once was? So this digital age and this pandemic lockdown has upset the apple cart when it comes to location. So we're going to talk about location and why you might recalculate some of your decisions, whether you want to be virtual, whether you're going to be working from home, returning to the office, or if there's some type of in-between ground, and how can we do this successfully without losing our customer base, or if you're trying to grow, some strategic moves you can take right now during this time that can be a differentiator in your company. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. We're also going to talk about some things that are happening in the news, as we do every week. We're going to talk about some of the things that people still they're not acting right. They're still kind of cutting the food out here. So we have our War in the Workplace segment. We're going to talk about Jesse Smollett. We're going to talk about this guy who was, he went to try to catch his check at a bank and called the police on him and locked him up. They locked up Wakanda. What's wrong with these people? We're going to talk about that. So we got a lot to talk about today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Many of you are tuning in for the first time. We appreciate your tuning in. And thank you for some of our regular inners, people like Marilyn, the comedian Platinum. Just thank you for tuning in. And she is a big supporter of the show, client. So she is out there doing things. She's one of these people we want to celebrate during this Women's History Month. So thank you, Platinum, and other people like you who are making this world a better place. I did have a thought the other day. I'm always thinking, I need to go to bed sometime. Just stop. But you know what? Even when I go to bed, I can't even stop thinking. I'm sure many of you business owners out here have that same issue. Your brain just doesn't stop. You should be sleeping, you're eating, you're running, you're driving, your brain is just like when I used to go home to see my parents during the Christmas holiday. Man, I'd be thinking all the way home. I'm not worried about Santa Claus and reindeer and Rudolph and all of them. I'm thinking about business. And the same thing now. I'm in business mode all the time. So I'm not proud of it, but it's just who I am now. So part of my fabric of who I am. But anyway, I was having one of these thoughts the other day. I'm laying in the bed. I'm thinking about, because I always like these quotes, these sayings, these parables that people toss around, because sometimes they haven't been updated. And the other one I think about was, a rose by any other name is still as sweet. Now, what that pretends is that something, even though the value of an object, or at least the perceived value of the object, has nothing to do with what you call it, or the name that it has been assigned. So think about that for a minute. There's something that you know, you like it, but whether it was named that product or something else, you would like it the same. And therein lies the quote: a rose by any other name will still smell just as sweet. Well, that might have been true some time ago. I'm not too sure about that now. Because right now we live in an age of big brands. We live in an age of the internet. We live in a digital age where many products have been made and broken by the very name they were given. Okay? So if you got a guy out here named Fred who's making facial tissue, and he goes out here and says, look, my facial tissue works just as good as Kleenex, you're going to say, wait a minute, what you talking about, Fred? So his by any name logic does not apply. Now, what does all mean? That means as a business owner, while you're out there toiling that field, you're out there in the garden trying to make sure that flower has the sweetest name, you need to also apply an equal effort to make sure that name can withstand the test of time, that it has been properly branded, and or trademark to make sure nobody else comes along and take it. So yes, we want to make sure we make the sweetest smelling rose. We want to make sure we have the best legal services. We want to make sure we have the best cakes and pies. We have the best lawn services. But according to the logic of today, in this era in which we live, you have to make sure also that name can withstand the test of time, so that when you have that sweet name, that it doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth because it has not been properly protected and given the proper weight. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some items in the news. This is the Marketing Pulpit TV show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host. Guess what? We're here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. bringing you the good marketing gospel. Thank you for our sponsors. I'd like to give them a little recognition today. BLE Executive Suites. They have 3 locations. The Perfect Batch Foods. They have this great hot sauce and twang sauce. And Passion Events Design, an event planning company. They've all jumped on board as sponsors of the show. We appreciate you. And if you want to become a sponsor of the show, just reach out to me and we can tell you how it's done. And we will promote you on the show, run your ads right here. And we actually create a great professional digital ad that you can use on all your social media devices. So hang on for a second. We'll be back in a minute. Don't go anywhere. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host. I'm not busy. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more. They should be given more flexible work hours. I may stop in some period, but as long as folks back the food, got to talk about it. Welcome back to the show. I'm Robert Gatewood, and I am here every Friday bringing you the good marketing gospel, not saving souls, saving businesses, saving our jobs and our community. Go to marketingpulpit.com. You can find the show and also sign up for our podcast. We are making it easier now for you to get this information. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, look, I like your show, but it's hard to listen when I'm driving because you got the video thing going. Okay, look, okay, I get it. So what we done, we joined the podcast world. So you can go to Marketing Pulpit and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen free. We also have a place you can donate if you want to support the show, as many have done. That's the other thing people ask quite often. How can I support you? Gatewood, I want to help. I mean, well, look, I don't really need the help personally, but if you want to donate to the show that we can help other people, that we can reach more people, we can help more people who can't afford the services, then of course, by all means, support the show, and we'll make sure we move it forward. What do you call it? Pass it forward. So go to marketingpulpit.com. Just click on that button that says podcast up at the top, and you'll see the different platforms that we're on: Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, and a few others. Of course, you can catch us on YouTube. Very thriving community video archive on YouTube. But go to marketingpulpit.com where you can find it all. I'd like to thank everybody who's tuning in today. Many are new, and some are tuning in for the first time. I'd like to welcome attorney Bradley Thomas, a regular listener and one of our history makers. He's a great attorney, intellectual property. He's a musician, an engineer, and he's also running for at-large DC Council. And so we wish him much success in his endeavor. And thank you again for everything you do for our community. He's not just a politician, I'm telling you. He is a person who cares about the community. And I've had the pleasure of working with him over the many years in many different endeavors. And man, if you're talking about somebody who's deserving of a title, he is the one. So thank you again, Brother Thomas, for tuning in to the Marketing Pulpit Show. We're going to talk about later in the show is location. We've heard it. Location. Well, is location now in the crosshairs as we deal with this digital marketing and this lockdown and pandemic, and now we have a war? Does location, is it still that pivotal component of marketing that it has always been? We're going to talk about that later in the show, because you can't just do business as usual, ladies and gentlemen. Things change. This is a different world we're living in. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Justice Smollett. We're going to talk about some other items when we get to our war in the workplace. But for right now, we're going to talk about some of the news items that are more contemporary, like the war. The war in Ukraine has entered its third week. And how time flies. Seemed like that was like yesterday when this war started. But now we're going into week number 3. The House has approved a $13.6 billion emergency aid package. That's a lot of money. Man, I'll tell you, even when you're not at war, you're at war. We cannot keep this money in our country to apply to all these needs that we have. Yeah, I feel for the people of Ukraine. Nobody should die in a war. I'm anti-war, period. Okay? Don't ever ask me which side you're on when it comes to a war. I say everybody put down your weapons and work it out. All this money. Had Kamala Harris over in Poland saying war crimes should be investigated. I'm not going to debate any of that. But war affects us, even when you're not out there shooting or people are not shooting at you. And I talked about last week how we're going to be affected. Some things that are going to be affecting us. Supply chain, which is already fragile. Gas prices, we're going to talk about that in a minute. The power grid, these Russians turn loose these bots. If you have a government contract, government has a way of pulling the rug on you when they get a good excuse. Your cash liquidity, one day you might go to the ATM machine, you can't get your money out. So these things don't happen in a vacuum. That's why you don't want war. But anyway, the war in Ukraine wages on, and there's a lot of people dying right now, a lot of suffering. That's why you shouldn't be fighting wars. Why can't adults just sit down and work things out? And you talk about children out here gang banging and cutting the food, but look at the adults. Look at the role models. What are they doing? Who has the biggest gun? They're the fastest airplanes, the newest tanks. You're not setting a good example, adults. Now, McDonald's and Starbucks and Netflix and Amazon, they've all cut ties with Russia. Now, once again, these things don't happen in a vacuum. As these decisions are being made, they will affect you eventually. Prices are going to go up. Certain things are not going to be available. Like 1 in 10 of the oil supplies come out of Russia. And we're not, I mean, it's like I think it's like 8% of the world supplies come out of Russia. But still, these gas prices have hit a record high. Right now, they're averaging $4.25 a gallon. And it's like a ticker tape. It's probably going up as I speak right now. California, they're up over $7 a gallon. Now, 71% of Americans support the efforts of the president and those who have banned oil imports. But fuel prices now have surpassed COVID-19 as the thing that worry Americans the most. They're like, I don't want to get COVID, but I got to get to work. I got to drive down to see grandma. I got to get this Lyft and Uber call on the road. How am I going to do it if gas is $7 a gallon? And Uber and Lyft drivers are having second thoughts. Right now, Uber and Lyft drivers, one, they're doing it full time. They're making about $50,000, $60,000 a year. And now this gas hike, which is being exacerbated by the war in Ukraine, is causing many of the Uber drivers and Lyft drivers to rethink. And they start to ask also, who should be paying for this? I can't bear this cross alone. I'm going to have to pass this on to the riders. So don't be surprised one day you jump in that app. You just want to ride up the street, get to work. You've been depending on this app to get you to work and back every day. Now, instead of spending $5, it's $10 or $8. So everything affects everything. Speaking of Lyft, Lyft is also one of these companies who they have a big corporate office. And they are deciding to give their employees the option on whether they can come to the office or not. I mean, companies are really struggling with this. That's why later in the show, we're going to talk about this location, and how it affects the various stakeholders when it comes to running a business. So they're one of these companies who's taking a more do what you want approach. While other companies have told their employees to come back to work, like Google and some of the other companies, look, better get back in here. We're back in business. Because it does affect and impact certain aspects of your business as part of that location. And it does affect the different stakeholders. That's why we're going to talk about that later in the show. And while we're talking about things that are being impacted by the pandemic, masking, people are just all over the place. I mean, I don't know what to do anymore. I just keep my mask on. I mean, then you keep your mask on, some joker yelling at you, calling you a knucklehead. You got the governor in Texas, what it was Florida, they got DeSantis yelling at these kids. That's ridiculous. This COVID theater. So people don't know what to do. You take your mask off and people won't be around you. You put it on, somebody's yelling at you. And the government and the CDC, I'm sure they are trying, but they haven't been much help. So you kind of create your own rule as you go. So, for instance, Cheesecake Factory, Texas Roadhouse, and a few other big restaurants, they have said, look, you don't have to wear a mask. We're not going to be checking for your COVID card, vaccination card. While others like Nando's and Shake Shack, they are still requiring workers at least to mask up. And the concerns about COVID is still a concern for many of the workers, and that's helping some people decide whether or not they're gonna work in certain industries. For instance, certain industries are taking a bigger hit, and they're looking for the exit doors. And it's no surprise retail lead the pack. About 45% of the people right now are trying to decide that they're looking for the exit door. In other words, they're thinking about moving out or staying put. Let's put it this way. 45% have decided they like to stay where they are. But when it comes to retail, only 33% of the people are opting to stay in their current occupation. Some other industries that have similar numbers, travel, transportation. And when you think about it, these are the folks that are on the front line. They're just worn out. They're tired. They're tired of being abused, tired of being underpaid, tired of these mask fights, checking for vaccination cards, and still, some of them are still not even getting paid $15 an hour. They're still being paid underpaid. Now, many companies have stepped up to the plate and they're paying more, and they should. But you've got to deal with this new reality, which many companies are not doing. They're still living in some fantasy world. Well, I'm going to pay somebody $10 an hour to sit here and be abused for 6 or 8 hours. It's not happening. Now, one industry that's seen a boom, has been real estate. Real estate is not feeling the crunch. That industry is one of the highest where people are deciding they would like to stay where they are. About 54% of them say they would like to stick around, compared to 33% in some of the other industries. Now, this has also brought in a lot of new workers into the real estate field, people who were displaced, some who have leaving some of these other industries. They're going into real estate because it's a boom going on. Okay. Now, that green isn't always what that green is. Sometimes it's a little greener, not as green as it seems sometimes. The number of homes for sale are historically low. So before you jump ship here, you want to give this some thought too. There's not as many houses out there, so competition is fierce. And here's a statistic you might want to consider before you quit your day job and go join the real estate field. Only 1 in 10 are going to do well enough to make a living at it. Just about everybody you know now has got a real estate license. It's like their side hustle nowadays, but it's not their main form of income. And I'm all for having residual income and different streams of income. So to all the real estate people who are choosing that as a profession, I say more power to you. More power to you. But just know you're going to be getting some company because many people are jumping into the field. So you got to really focus on branding, marketing, getting your name out there. You can't just sit back and just wait on your cousin or big mama decide to buy a house. You got to reach some strangers, ladies and gentlemen. That's with any type of marketing. First thing we do, we sell to the folks we know. Your church members, your amen choir, with the amen corner and the choir and the deacon board, first lady. Yeah, they're going to buy. They'll support you. Your sorors and frats, family and friends, but you're going to run out of those people real fast. You've got to bring in some strange. Oh boy. Now these executives, there's a little bit of disconnect between people coming back to work. Tim Cook made this big announcement. Hey, come back to work. He said, this is what he said exactly. I'm looking forward to us being together again. Looking forward to being together again. Well, apparently the feeling isn't mutual. Because even though 75% of the executives, they want their workers to come back to the office for 5 days a week, only 34% of the employees feel the same way. I mean, that's kind of funny when you think about it. That's kind of funny. I'd like to welcome Brother Mary of the Millionaire Mastermind Institute. Thank you for joining us this morning. He's got a great show, comes on Tuesdays and Friday evenings at, I think it's 9 o'clock. And Platinum say, I'm preaching over here. I tell you, Platinum, you got to watch out. I tell you, my dad was a preacher. That's why we're the marketing pulpit. That marketing pulpit, speaking of marketing pulpit is a pretty strong brand now, I must say. When I jumped into the marketing pulpit, how'd that happen? When I jumped on marketing pulpit a few years ago, there was no such thing as marketing pulpit. I just ask you to do something today. Just go to Google. Just Google marketing pulpit. You can say, good Lord have mercy. That darn thing's everywhere. You're going to see us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, Blog Talk, Radio One, iTunes. You got to, that goes back to that quote I said earlier. Is a rose by any other name still just as sweet? Not really. You got to build that name. It might be sweet, but if you're the only one smelling it, it's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. I'm just saying. But anyway, you all have some coffee. I'm cutting back on coffee, by the way, too. Trying to be healthy. Start putting water in this cup. It looks like coffee, right? But hey, we're going to do it. We're going to take another break. We come back. We're going to talk about quickly some of these headline stories that you got to talk about. War in the workplace. We're going to talk about Jesse Smollett. We're going to talk about this man who goes to catch his $12,000 check and ends up going out the door in handcuffs. I mean, he's the producer of Black Panther. We're going to talk about, I tell you, just hang on a second, okay? I'm going to show all my hand. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back in a minute, okay? Because business ownership is like it's a game changer. It's an opportunity that's available to most. You gotta get. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more. They should be given more flexible work hours. I may stop at some period, but as long as folks back the food, got to talk about it. Welcome back to the show. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host, and we are here every Friday bringing you the good marketing gospel. Well, it's marketing gospel. I'm not a preacher, even though I am a chaplain. I could marry somebody if somebody need a quick wedding. I do have a chaplain license, which is different than an ordained minister. But anyway, thank you again for tuning in. Go to Marketing Pulpit. You can find out all of the platforms that we're on. iTunes, Google. That's our new podcast. And of course, we can get the show on YouTube. You can go to YouTube right now. You can watch all the shows, well, all the ones that are there. And you can go to Instagram and get some of the blurbs. So we're out there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to build this platform so that we can keep getting this information into, like Funkadelic said, into your ear hole. What is that? I'm going to give you what you're here for. I've got the means to take you there, but I promise to be good to your ear hole. I know I'm showing my age now. I know all you young folks never heard of Funkadelic. You're all into what's that little girl? Some of the younger folks now. Bruno Mars and I can't even name them. I think what's the one? Nicki Minaj and all. I gotta catch up on, read up on my who's making the music nowadays. Let's see here. Let's talk about this war in the workplace. Just got a couple of quick stories today. Things that everybody's talking about. One is this Chicago judge has sentenced umpire actor Jesse Smollett to serve 150 days in jail. Hey, Bradley said, make my punk the fee punk. Okay, now he knows about Funkadelic. All right, about time. Thanks for helping me out there, Bradley. I thought I was out here all by myself. What's that? Good thoughts, bad thoughts, and maggot brain, and flashlight. Oh, flashlight, man! Don't get me going. Flashlight. Woo! That was some good music, man. Do they make music like that anymore? Oh, let's get back to war in the workplace. Smollett was sentenced to 150 days in jail and 30 months probation and ordered to pay $120,000 in restitution and $25,000 in fines. Ouch. Now, last December, he was convicted of staging a fake racist and homophobic attack against himself in January 2019. And according to the jury, he was subsequently charged of lying to police in the aftermath thereof. And they said that Smollett concocted the entire affair. He said some folks from MAGA country who were wearing red hats poured bleach on him, hung a noose around his neck, and called him some racial slurs. Well, I must admit the story is quite a stretch. Whether it happened or not, that's not for me to decide. But I do want to ask this of all people generally. Don't believe or not believe something because you're just following the crowd, or because it's somebody you know, or some celebrity that you like. I mean, I don't mind. You don't turn off your rational thinking because it's a celebrity or somebody you like. Whether he's guilty or innocent, I'm going to leave that to the courts. Even though the courts haven't always been fair to us. But still, you know in your own mind how you feel about it. And whether you want to say he did it or not, that's up to you. But you have to decide what makes sense to you. If you say, look, okay, I don't believe he did it. And if you really believe that, then go with it. But if you say, look, that story seems to have got more holes in it than Swiss cheese, but I still believe that the justice system has unfairly tarnished and prosecuted people of color. You can do both. You can say, I don't believe his story. At the same time, I don't believe that the justice system is fair. But don't just say because the justice system is fair that you can't use your own brain and come to your own conclusion. We can't do that. We're smarter than that, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm just saying, I'm not gonna sit here and pass judgment. I don't know who said, who did what. But I am gonna say this. Don't become like this other crazy group out here who will believe anything anybody says because they're followers, they're hero worshipers. I don't care if you're a celebrity. If you commit a crime, then I'm going to say, look, I believe you did it or I didn't. I'm not going to base it on your celebrity status. And I'm saying that without passing judgment on Mr. Smollett. I don't know what happened. Seems a little iffy, but hey, jury has made his decision. Let's see. A manager was sentenced to house arrest after fatally punching to death an elderly white customer who called him the N-word. Man, that's a lot to unpack there. First of all, you're dumb. I've been telling these folks, you out here calling folks N-words and giving people the finger, and that stuff gonna catch up with you eventually, as it did with this guy. You can't be calling people N-word. Somebody's not gonna take it. Now, I don't condone punching folks to death, even when they do, because I think people use that word to take your power away. Now, luckily, this young man, he was only sentenced to house arrest. I'm glad for that. I'm glad he didn't have to go to prison, as oftentimes that's what happens. But I've struggled with this thing. I said, what happens if somebody's going to call me the N-word? Am I going to punch him? Am I going to shoot him? Am I going to run him over with my car? Or am I going to walk away? Well, if you walk away, I'm not going to say that makes you weak. Matter of fact, many people will tell you the opposite is true. Don't let people lure you or bait you into something that's going to affect you the rest of your life. Don't do that. So what I'm going to say, as far as that story is concerned, once again, I'm glad that the young man, he was only 27 years old. He can go on with his life. Now, you still got, just because you're not charged with a crime does not mean you're going to live an easy life. Whenever you kill somebody, for whatever reason, that's going to haunt you. So yes, he got off with the sentence, but I know some people just deserve a good butt whipping. I mean, really, they really do. But the other problem right now is about taking that approach. There's so many people who are armed nowadays. You go punch the guy, as we've seen in this video, this popular video from a year or two ago. This guy walking around the parking lot being handicapped police. He yells at the young man's woman. He pushes him to the ground. The guy pulls out a gun, shoots him, and kills him. As much as I think this guy deserved the pushing and a punch to the head or whatever, these things just tend to get out of control. So just proceed with caution. Proceed with caution. That's all I have to say. I know it's tough out here. It's tough being a brother and a sister in this society. People calling you names, denying your employment, redlining you, paying you less than what you should be paid. And you're going to the bank to get your money out, and they calling the police on you. That's what happened with Ryan Coogler, director of the Black Panther movie. The Black Panther can't get a break. Wakanda, come on. So this young man goes to the bank. He's got a hat on, he's got a mask, shades. I've said this a while ago that this masking thing, that's one of the downsides of it, is that, man, it's like a bad guy's holiday. A mask and a hat, some shades. If you do have bad intention, you can literally do it without being identified. But that's not the case. And that's why banks have protocols and procedures. Show me your ID, your PIN. Do you have an account here? So I don't care if you're wearing a McDonald's outfit or McDonald the Clown, Ronald McDonald. If you pass that protocol, give me my money. Period. Point blank. Full stop. Don't be making up rules as you go. And if you're that teller, if you want to stay in everybody's good graces and not be the fall guy, follow the rules. The teller didn't follow the rules. The manager didn't follow the rules. And that's why we have this news story, and Bank of America finds itself in hot water once again. Now, of course, the young lady who was at and this was the other twist to the story. The teller was a black lady. Man, I'm telling you, that cultural conditioning is a beast. That's why you say racism is systemic. You can't just pick out individual instances and say it does or doesn't exist. When it's a system that not only affects people of the majority or whatever the white race, but even people of our own race. Anyway, enough of that. Once again, when you get lost and you're working for these institutions and you're not sure what to do, follow the rules. I mean, of course, be safe, but follow the rules. And if they put the rules in place and you follow those rules, then you're out of the hot seat. It's on them, not you. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about location. Location. It's in the crosshairs. Does it still apply? Is it still that catch-all, end-all when it comes to marketing success? We're going to talk about it in a minute right here on the Marketing Pulpit Show. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back. I'm not busy. I'm just in another era. Lock the refrigerator door. Do not let negativity have another bite. Don't feed it. If we know that women are carrying the burden, they should be paid more, they should be given more flexible work hours. I may stop in some period, but when folks back to food, got to talk about it. If you can't beat them, join them. What if you can't join them? Then you beat them. Sometimes you find yourself fighting some forces that are really just beyond your ability to overcome. Sometimes it's not necessarily an adversarial relationship. Sometimes we have to join in with the people that we're actually trying to fight, because you say, look, I might not be able to beat this organization, but at least I can still benefit. But then let's say for an unjust reason, they decide not to let you join them. In that case, I say, let's go beat them. Now, this is not about vengeance. This is about survival. If you can't beat them, some you can join, and they're not mutually exclusive. You can join some, you may have to beat others. We all have to deal with this on a daily basis. But pick your battles. And if you ever get lost along the way, let your purpose be your guide. All right, welcome back to the show. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host. Go to marketingpulpit.com. You can find out more about the show. You can subscribe to our podcast, Marketing Pulpit. We are all things Marketing Pulpit, everywhere. Whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on these different platforms, podcasting platforms, Anchor.fm, Spotify, iHeartRadio, we're Marketing Pulpit. That's our brand. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about our topic for today. And yeah, by the way, like I said, go subscribe to our podcast so you can listen while you're driving and without running off the road or while you're exercising. And Brother Bradley Thomas reminded us of a quote. We were talking about the last story about Mr. Cougars couldn't get his money, and it was a black teller who really called the police on him, basically. Joe Madison, one of our elder statesmen who has a popular show on Sirius XM, who's also a client of mine. His famous statement is, we are all culturally conditioned to believe that white is superior, black is inferior, and the manifestation of that cultural conditioning is that black people are undervalued, underestimated, and marginalized. Thank you, Brother Thomas, for reminding us. And also you can catch Joe on Sirius XM every morning or weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. He's coming out with a book. He has a new book out now called Radioactive. And I've been working with him to get that book out there and promote it. You can go to joemadison.com, and there's a banner up at the top of his website to get his book, Radioactive. Let's talk about our sermon for today. Is location still the rule? Location, location, location. That's all I heard when I was just getting started in the marketing. Location, location, location. Location is everything. What that means is that if you don't have the right location, you might as well just fold the tent from the get-go. You're not going to make it. But now location that's a blurred line. It's not what it used to be. It's not the same landscape that we had when that quote was so famous. Location, location, location. And now what is your location is not even obvious. What is your location nowadays? The waters have been muddied. We just talked about last week about Amazon closed all of its bookstores. So Amazon has kind of like been in this straddling the fence on this location issue. So what they're trying to decide is, are we all online, or can we have a brick and mortar outfit? They decided back in 2018 to open up these stores. They had like 200 something stores. They closed 65 stores across the U.S. and they shut them all, including the ones in the United Kingdom. as they grapple with this location concept. Now, this coronavirus, supply chain issues, and some of the other challenges we're seeing as a country and a society is testing business models across the globe and the viability thereof. So many of us are asking ourselves, this location thing. So what I'm going to talk about, some recalculations, some things to consider as you grapple with this location concept and its pivotal nature or not when it comes to marketing. Now, one thing I always say is that you have to go back to your audience. And I'm going to broaden it to say your stakeholders. How are your stakeholders impacted by your location decisions? Now, the biggest stakeholder that we are mostly concerned about is our clients and our customers. Where do the majority, how do they shop? How are they going to be impacted by your decision, whether it be virtual, brick and mortar, or some other way? There are other factors to consider. For instance, if you're a government contractor, government contracts, many of them require you to have a physical office. You cannot use a P.O. box. They're not trying to hear that. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to save some money and just say, look, I'm going to cheapest route. There are other extenuating circumstances when we're making these decisions about location. Vendors and suppliers, how are they impacted? Staff. We talked about this staff issue. 75% of the CEOs would like for you to come back to work, while 34% of the employees say, nah, we don't feel the same way. So your decision will impact your stakeholders. Okay? Now, how is this location issue going to impact your marketing and branding? Now, I will say this. Many of you have chosen the path of least resistance and said, look, I'm going to close my office and go 100% virtual. Now, that decision does not exist in a vacuum. If you're in a tight market, you're in a very competitive industry, that decision could impact your brand. If all of your competitors have big fancy offices, people can come in and sit down, and that industry is, people are accustomed to certain types of accommodations, then that decision should not be taken lightly. Your brand will be impacted in many cases by your decision, whether you go totally brick and mortar or totally virtual. Okay? Even things like your marketing, when you're doing your online marketing now, your keywords and hashtags, you need to now start geotagging those hashtags now. Don't just say, look, I'm selling cakes or I'm doing legal services or this or that, the other. You got to start putting in those location tags as we look at this digital age and its importance on your marketing channels. So marketing, branding, networking, things like that are impacted also by your location. Now, of course, your services. Certain services just simply require a physical location, okay? Some are questionable, some are on the line, but some just require a physical location. You have to ask yourself, is my industry one of those? And sometimes it's not necessarily out of logistical necessity, it's out of what the customer has been accustomed to. Now, that may shift from time to time as we get deeper and deeper into these pandemics and lockdowns and supply chain, but you can't make a decision, a hard, fast decision based on the model that existed 20, 30, 40 years ago. So you got to look at your services and say, do I have one of these services that people expect to be delivered in person at my location? Now, you do want to, this is some global advice. I'm just going to give you some general advice. If you're selling products and services, no matter what you're selling, I'm going to say right now, you need to limit your SKUs, your SKUs, or this old term means, it's an acronym for stock keeping units. Don't sell 20 different items when you could probably, when your customers are spending on 20% of the top, the ones at the top, you only got to, you only have a few of them that are actually selling anything. Your 80-20 rule we talked about last week, of Pareto's law. You got to dump that 80% of waste and focus on that 20%. And that, as we grapple with these location issues, you're dealing with less inventory, less overhead, less space, which takes us to our next one, which is cost. It's a consideration when we're talking about what our location is going to be, whether it's going to be virtual, whether it's going to be brick and mortar, or somewhere in between. So when we're talking about cost, what are some of the factors to consider? Let's take another look back at the stakeholders. You have employees, and you're making this decision like Tim Cook just made about he wants the people to come back to work, and 75% of the CEOs feel the same way. When you have gas at $7 a gallon, are you considering your stakeholders when you make these kind of decisions? 35% of the employees are saying, I'd rather work from home. And it's not just because of the gas prices. You have many who have young children, some have disabilities, some have all types of issues that have to be weighed, that were given opportunity during the pandemic that they may not have had otherwise. And location plays a pivotal role in that. While we're talking about cost, also, if pricing is a big part of your strategy, many companies, when you write your business plan, you go with a certain strategy. I'm a tech strategy, I'm a location strategy, I'm a pricing strategy. I'm going to be the lowest person in town. Well, you may have to make a decision, your location decision, based on the pricing strategy that you created when you started this business. You may not be able to afford to keep a brick and mortar operation if you decided you're going to be the lowest person in town, because pricing was a pivotal key component of your business model, of your strategy. So that's a weight that you have to figure into your calculation on to whether or not you should be brick and mortar or virtual in your location. We have to weigh things such as security and safety. If you are a brick and mortar shop right now, you almost have to have a security guard at the door, particularly during this pandemic, because of these knuckleheads out here fighting people over masks. That's a cost that you would have to bear. If that doesn't fit into your model, if it's going to be exorbitant and beyond your abilities, that's a calculation you have to weigh in your decision to go brick and mortar or virtual. And don't think you're going to get an easy ride just by going online either. We've had more ransomware attacks in the last year or two than in the history of the internet. So there is no okay, let me just go ahead and go online and just not have to worry about security. Not quite that easy. I tell you folks, I've told you many times, this business thing is not for the weak of heart. Let's talk about equality. I touched on it earlier. Your decision could affect certain vulnerable members of our community. People with disabilities, accessibility, people with economic challenges, families with children, young children. Your decision on whether to go virtual or brick and mortar, your location, sometimes hinges on how you feel about these other communities, these other members of our community. What is your purpose? What are the commitment you've made to your stakeholders? And last but not least, the health, mental and physical. Your decision on location, how is it going to impact the mental and physical health of your stakeholders? Now, what does this all mean? I'm just going to give some quick advice as you make these decisions. I'm not going to tell you which way to go because there's so many different types of businesses. Many of you I've never even spoken with personally, but I want to give you some general information as you grapple with these decisions. And I'm dealing with it on a daily basis now with so many clients. They're coming to me and say, Robert, do I need to open an office? Should I go 100% online? Because location now doesn't just mean your physical location. Location really means your distribution channel. How do you get your product to the market? And how does the customers get to you? And it's a decision that can't be taken lightly. So to answer the question, is location still a pivotal part of marketing success? The answer is yes. How you deal with it though, there's a lot in the details. So my Robert rules of advice is number one, be nimble. Be like Jack. Jack, be nimble. Jack, be quick. Now, you don't have to jump over a candlestick, but you do have to be nimble and flexible in these times. As you struggle to keep your overhead low, don't commit to don't make these 5-year commitments on things like office space. Even when it comes to staff, you got to be a little more, give yourself more flexibility and wiggle room because things are very tenuous right now. So the less long-term commitment you make, the better you can maneuver and be nimble. I want you to do this too, increase your contingency funds. Now, when you write a business plan, one thing I ask all my clients to do is to add a line for contingency. And that contingency is not just for the startup, that contingency should be ongoing. In other words, it's like your emergency funds. If the supply chain gets bad, do I have some extra money to fall back on? If I have to go out and hire some extra staff, have a big explosion in sales or a downturn, can I sustain? Do I have like a month or 2 or 3 months or a year of contingency funds to keep the company going? This is not the time to be running on empty or living on the edge. Go ahead and build up that contingency fund. Many people got money from the federal government in the forms of the PPP, payroll protection plans, the EDIL, economic injury, whatever the loan, disaster loan. So if you have that money and you would decide whether or not to give it back, which many have, including myself, like I never really use it. Should I just go ahead and give it back? Well, you might use that money for your contingency. Shorter leases, things like that, and outsource. Before you make long-term commitments on staffing and things like that, you might outsource, even though the hourly, short-term cost may be higher. In the long run, it gives you that flexibility to maneuver these times. And last but not least, this is the old, I guess the preacher son in me. Weigh how your decisions are going to impact the vulnerable members of our community. Okay, it's not always about bottom line. It's about we have to live in this society. We don't live alone, and there's some people that are impacted by our decisions that sometimes we don't even consider. I'm not saying make all your decisions based on how it's going to impact others, but it should be weighed as a factor. How are they going to affect people who have economic challenges, people with disabilities, people that have young children in their homes? Make these decisions with them in mind. Don't give it all of the weight, but do give it some consideration. And also, when you get lost, remember your audience, and let your purpose be your guide. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for the day. This is the Marketing Pulpit Show. We are here every Friday at 10:30 a.m. We bring you the good marketing gospel. We're not saving souls. We're saving businesses. We're saving jobs. We're saving our community. Now, go to marketingpulpit.com. You can find out more about us. And I do ask you to join go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. You'll see the link on the Marketing Pulpit homepage up in the top, say podcast. You can also see the different platforms we're on, such as Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and a few others. And now you can get this information. You can listen while you're driving, while you're working out. Some say while you're sleeping. Make it really go into your head. Also, visit us on the different platforms. I will be teaching again in the spring next month. We'll be back at Prince George's Community College. I'll be teaching marketing strategies. It's a 6-hour course, part of the Business Owner Success Series program. I also do a class called Networking Works. And I also do a course on social media strategy. So if you're in the DC area, you're going to get some credits and get this information firsthand from me. You can also sign up at the college. And thank you again, Brother Murphy. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Bradley and Marilyn and all the other people who've tuned in today and all the others. Janelle, thank you, Janelle. Janelle is she's another young lady I like to celebrate on this Women's History Month. She is the epitome, the personification of doing it the right way. She has several businesses, but she always puts giving back at the forefront of her strategy. And it's people like Janelle that really, I think that's what the Women's History Month is all about. We're having history being made in the present. So thank you, Janelle, for all the things that you do. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up today. This is the Marketing Pulpit. We'll be back next week. Same bat time. I think it was Batman said that. I think Batman's gone here. Anyway, same time right here on this show. So we'll see you next week. And until then, if you want to be successful, you got to do these three things. Do the right thing, do it at the right time, and you have to do it right. Enough talk. Let's get to work. People don't understand marketing. You can't stop every time the money runs out. You need to come on and tell people why your service is different. Why is everybody so angry? Airline passengers biting the TSA agents. I mean, it reminds me of one of those zombie apocalyptic movies. And as a community, collectively, we're going to be taken more seriously if we have that strong economic foundation. Do the right thing, do it at the right time, and you have to do it right. Enough talk. Let's get to work.